Hey, what is happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast, where we are here to help you be happy, healthy, wealthy, and get better every single day. You're in for a real treat today. You are going to be meeting one of my good friends, and this has happened quickly. He's just this amazing man that is so inspiring. He's brilliant, and you're going to get so much value from him. I just cannot wait for this interview. Christian Smutherman is the founder of Growth Loop, a growth intelligence firm that helps service business scale with complete revenue engines. Christian has 10 years of experience in the startup space working with expert service businesses. Well, Christian, my brother, what is happening? How are you doing today?
Oh, man, what's going on, JM? I'm doing great. Just another busy week, but excited to be here, man. Thanks for having me on.
I'm excited to have you. You know, this is why I love podcasting. You guys don't know, but basically, I met Christian doing his podcast. I don't even know, let's call it 6 months, 8 months ago. And so much has changed in that time. It's like when you meet one of those people that you know is going to be in your life for a long time. I immediately was like, hey, man, here's the deal. You're going to be in my life. That's the way it is. Introduced to a good friend, a mutual friend of ours, Mateo. And things are just continuing to rapidly grow. So with all that being said, man, I'm just, you make me smile. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks,
where do I start? You have such a fascinating background, brother. I mean, obviously, as I said in the intro, Growth Loop, I think, is incredible. It's amazing. But I want to start with your story because it's pretty remarkable. You and I sat in South Carolina having some food, and I was like, my mind kind of got blown by your background and how you got to where you got to, man. So with that being said, kind of what was that journey like for you?
Man, I don't even know where to start. I could start at 5 years old, 7 years old and take you through. But the long and the short of it, man, is I've always had that entrepreneurial bug since I was a kid. I remember being 7 years old and my mom had this big idea. She's like, let's throw a garage sale. And let's see if we can get the entire community to come out and buy our stuff. And that was really my first introduction to business. You know, we put together the marketing signs. We had our value proposition of like being like a really unique yard sale in Charlotte, North Carolina. We went door to door, like knocking on doors and telling everybody about it. And I remember, as a little 7-year-old, like at least 100 people came out and they were buying our stuff. I had my own little additional service on the side selling lemonade. And I remember making so much money during that time. And I knew from that moment, I'm like, all right, I'm going to start a business at some point in my life. I'm going to do this thing. And throughout the years, that's what I did. In high school, I started a company. It was like a candy company, and I was the only person that had access to these like gourmet candies. And I got a teacher to invest in it for me, and she set me up. And I mean, it just went crazy. It got to a point where I literally had other students selling it for me, and we just built this little candy empire. And from that point, I was like, okay, well, what is this really going to look like for me? So by the time I got to college, I had so many different ideas. I wanted to start a tech company. I had ideas about doing animation and illustration and web design and all these different things. And ultimately, I ended up in this really amazing space in college where I got accepted into this cool accelerator program where they taught us about business model, finding your ideal customers. What does it look like to sell before you build? Like all these concepts I'd never heard of before as an 18-year-old. And I took that with me after I graduated, where I ended up at this like really innovative accelerator / incubator organization that worked with ed tech companies in Washington, D.C. And with that organization, I got to travel all over the country, just exposing entrepreneurs to different business models and technologies. Ended up in Silicon Valley, got a partnership with Stanford D School, just so many cool things. And I remember, maybe 4 or 5 years into that role, I'd elevated from a fellow to a director at that organization. And I just saw a lot of gaps in the entrepreneurial space. Like startups, they had big ideas, founders had big visions. But in terms of bringing everything together so that they could go to market, that was missing. And so I'd spent a lot of time early in my career really thinking through things like, who's your ideal target market? What's your messaging? What are the communications? How does everything look and feel? But then translating that to actual dollars, that was the hard part. And
Mm.
so that's really the genesis of Growth Loop. I went into the CEO's office. I was probably like 24, 25 at the time. And when you're 24, 25, you don't know what you don't know. You've got these kind of sometimes bold ideas that grab you. And I told her, I said, hey, I'm not coming back to the office. I'm done. I have a vision, and I think that I can do some of the things that we're doing here in a different way, and I want to try that. And I'd love for you to be my first client. And it's crazy. She agreed. I remember her mouth dropped, and she's like, all right, well, I'm going to take this to the board. Took it to the board, and voila, they became my first client. And so I transitioned at that point to working with startup founders, working with businesses that were trying to gain traction, and starting to build a portfolio, helping them with a number of things: web design, graphic design, communications, messaging. And it really evolved over the years into a system that now I call Growth Loop. That's the name of my company, where we come in and we work with founders who are looking to scale to $100,000 a month and beyond. And we really put together the entire go-to-market engine for their business. So, my journey is kind of homegrown. I didn't grow up with a lot. My parents did an amazing job, raising us and giving us resources to make sure that we had everything we needed to succeed. But I didn't have a lot of examples in terms of what this actually looked like. So I had to just go out and figure it out on my own. And I had some challenges growing up too, just, figuring things out for myself and navigating some tricky situations. But I feel very blessed to be in the position that I'm at now, where I can work with amazing people and meet amazing people like you and connect with businesses and really help them take their vision from an idea to reality.
Yeah, you certainly do that, man. And I knew his answer was going to be so humble, you guys. So here's the deal. I think it was about our 50th conversation or somewhere in that range. And somehow this word Princeton comes up, and we're talking. I go, Christian, did you go to Princeton? He's like, oh yeah, man, that's where I went. And I'm like, all right, well, now this whole genius thing makes sense. So I'm just going to brag for you for a minute.
All right.
You're not going to do it. I'll do it for you. Legit genius, he and his siblings, and you guys literally went to an amazing boarding school, I guess is what I call it, in the States. You ended up going to Princeton. And I don't say that often. Like, I know others that go to these schools, but you have this cool confidence about you, brother. And you're so humble, and the humility comes through. But the reason I bring it up is, so you had a different, you kind of raised differently in the boarding school thing. And then you ended up traveling abroad doing these things. And I think what it's done, and what I really appreciate, is you have a really big worldview. It's not just like, all right, I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, then I ended up in, Jersey doing my college thing. It's like, no, man, you've gone to different places around the world. Can you talk a little bit about that experiences and what that has allowed you to really bring to this entrepreneurial world? Because I think that's what I appreciate so much, is that it's bigger than just our little pockets that we grow up in.
Absolutely, man. So, where to begin? So I was 16 years old the first time I got on a plane. And that first time I went out the country. So it was the first time I left the South, the first time I got on a plane, the first time I ever traveled. I had no idea what I was in for at 16 years old. So I was in boarding school at the time in North Carolina, and I got a National Science Foundation grant from Duke University to do research at Aarhus University in Copenhagen, Aarhus, Denmark. So we went to Copenhagen, then we went to Aarhus. I was doing some nanotechnology research at the time. And I remember touching down in Denmark and just being absolutely mind blown at the fact that there is a whole nother place in the world with totally different people from a totally different culture, with a totally different language, and still, like, we're finding ways to connect with one another. Still, there's this, I made so many friends when I was in Denmark, and I felt like I'd just been exposed to another side of being a human being that at that point I had never conceived of before. So I lived in Denmark for about 4 months doing research and exploring, and had an amazing experience doing that. And that really opened my eyes to the possibilities of what it looks like to travel. At Princeton, I did a really amazing immersion program in China, where we had like language immersion in Mandarin Chinese, and I lived in China for about 4 months, and really just got this immense exposure to Chinese culture. Never planned on learning Mandarin Chinese, but it's something I just randomly was like, hey, let's just. I was like, sophomore year, I was like, you know what, let's just do something different, and ended up all the way in Beijing, at Beishu Dashway, and amazing experience. I mean, from the culture, the food, but again, those overlapping connection points. I remember playing basketball outside with all the kids, in China, and they were like, "LeBron James, are you LeBron? Kobe Bryant?" And like some people might take offense to something like that, but I thought it was hilarious because I was hooping. I was like, yeah, I am LeBron James. Are you kidding me? Yeah, let's go. And so, I just had so many amazing experiences doing that. And it just exposed me, to the possibilities of just connecting with people across difference, across race, across culture, across continents. There's so much out there in the world. And all this has kind of led me to this place now where I'm a digital nomad. So my business is completely mobile. I'm able to freely travel wherever I'd like, and work from wherever I want remotely. And I kind of call this remote freedom. It's something that I had a vision of when I was 23, 24 years old. I remember telling my mom this. I'm like, one day I'm going to be working on a beach. One day soon. I'm going to figure it out. I'm not coming into an office. And, being able to actually achieve that, it's just, I mean, even looking back on it, I'm like, damn, like that actually freaking happened. But, recently last year, I traveled to Peru. I was in Brazil for a while. Love Brazil, an amazing place. And I'm going to be exploring many, many different countries. I actually hired some folks too, out in other countries. So there's just so much out there, to connect with people on, and there's so much overlap, in the human race, that if you just go out and make connections, you'll start to see the world it's actually it's a lot bigger and a lot smaller than you actually think.
Yeah, and that's one thing as we will get into what growth loop is, you're connecting people in a way that's shrinking the world even more and really allowing companies to grow at an accelerated pace because of your knowledge of AI and because of your knowledge of scaling businesses. So if you guys haven't figured it out, he just casually dropped for a second. Yeah, I'm doing research in Denmark on nanotechnology at 16. I ended up in China and picked up Mandarin, the hardest language in the world to learn. And then, I guess I'll go to Brazil and I'll pick up Portuguese. So you guys now, I'll stop bragging on him, but he's got this really cool mind. So I got that out of the way. I just have to. I got to brag for you, man, because you're not going to do it. But let's talk about growth loop, because what I find fascinating about what you do is you're wise beyond your years. There's times that you stop and it can be chaos, bro, just absolute utter chaos. And you just casually have these things like, yep, that's where we're supposed to be right now. And it's like Yoda just spoke for a moment. And it's just so funny, man. I don't catch it in the moment. It's always like later, I'm like, gosh, how did he know that? And I feel like that's what growth loop is, man. It's like you're so far ahead of other people. It's like you're not caught up in all the noise. You just see hey, this is what we really need to focus on.
Yep.
And it's accelerating so many people's businesses and growth. So talk about it. It's perfect name. Yeah. It's the infinity symbol, which I didn't realize, which that's cool too. But yeah, man, just talk about growth loop a little bit.
Man, I love it. I love what you just shared. So, the vision behind Growth Loop is, what does it look like to actually put agency back in the hands of owners? Because there's so many business owners that are out there that have big visions, big dreams. They're doing amazing things, but they don't know how to actually get in front of the right people. They don't know how to build the right relationships. They don't know how to market their services. They don't know how to position themselves. There's so many layers to running a good business and growing a business sustainably. And it's really difficult to figure all those things out. So when I first started my business journey, I thought to myself, if I can figure out how to help other businesses grow, that's where I'm going to find success for myself, because that's what I'm passionate about, helping people connect not only with their passion, but their purpose, and turn that into something that's not only profitable, but scalable and sustainable. And so Growth Loop was really born out of that mindset. How do we give people their power back? And how do we empower them to really understand exactly what they need to do, when they need to do it, what's the right time and the right place to do those things, and then the pathway to let's just freaking make it happen. And so, I've had the privilege of working with hundreds of businesses over the last 10 years, literally hundreds of businesses. I've been a director at 10, $50 million companies. I've been in the C-suite for smaller startups. I've had hundreds of clients that have come through Growth Loop and all the different iterations of what I do as a consultant. And what I started to see over time was that there really are patterns. There are patterns to growth and there are patterns to failure. And what I ultimately identified is, how do we actually get from 0 to 1? And then how do we go from 1 to 10 the fastest way possible? How do we cut out all the bullshit? How do we actually cut through the noise so that we're not wasting our time doing things that don't move the needle? We need to figure out what's actually going to get us to our destination, which is what? It's prosperity, it's freedom, it's impact. And so I spent years working with customers, working with clients and businesses to really identify what it is are the most effective and efficient mechanisms to get to where we want to be. And what I've found is that it doesn't have to be as complicated or as confusing as it seems, because there's so much content out there, right? There's so many different agencies that are out there saying, hey, this is what you need to do. Here's how we can solve this problem. And I can't tell you how many people come to me and they're like, man, I just got out of this really traumatic relationship with a marketing agency and I got burned. And, we spent all this time, doing X, Y, and Z, and it didn't produce any results. Or, yeah, they sent us some leads, but, like those leads didn't actually translate into sales. And so what Growth Loop really does is we engineer growth systematically. We take the time to really understand not only the business, but the mind of the founder, the transformative capabilities and power that exists within a business. And then we figure out how to engineer a vehicle around that. Because what I realized is that business isn't just some amorphous thing with all these different activities that are happening. It's really a vehicle. And if we can figure out how to engineer that vehicle and build it the right way, with the right body, the right wheels, the right engine, right? Like we fuel that vehicle in the right way. That's how we get to results. And so we spent a lot of time developing a system that does that autopilot, automatedly, as well as figuring out ways to integrate artificial intelligence, AI agents, and new technologies into our business infrastructure that do what? That give us more time, that get us more results, and ultimately allow us to have leverage in our businesses so that we can do what? Connect with ideal customers and, right, build an audience of people that actually want what we have to offer. And that's one of the hardest things to do in business, but it is possible. And the last thing I'll say here is, at the end of the day, what Growth Loop is really all about is automating and scaling opportunities, right? That lead to relationships. Because when we have the right relationships, that's how we unlock scale. That's where growth comes from, right? It's not just random people. It's not posting a whole bunch of shit and hoping that it works out. It's not spending thousands of dollars on ads. It's really about honing in on the right people, the right opportunities, and making sure we have a system to build those relationships and connections so that we can actually grow.
Yeah, it is one of the coolest parts about working with you is you see AI in a way that actually connects human beings. And actually, he takes you through a process, or he's taken me through several times, several different iterations. And what AI does is it shrinks the time and really brings out the true core values. And to watch you do this is really remarkable for those of us that are not techies, like me, not a techie, like at all, man. And I've watched this happen 3 times. Literally, we've gone through
Wow.
it. And what I find fascinating is because I think most people are like, AI can be good, sure, but ultimately there's this negative thing to it. And I see you really taking it and saying, okay, maybe, but let's utilize all the good that it has
Yes.
so that your intellectual property or your passions, whatever's deep down there, let's vet this thing out and you keep massaging through it. And I don't know if there's a question as much as I marvel at it. I sit there, I'm like, oh my God, dude, he shrank literally 5 years. And I'm not kidding, of things that I've been working on in about an hour.
Yep.
Can you talk to me about how you're able to do that? Because again, I know people know ChatGPT. I even know that part. But even the way you use ChatGPT to the next level
Yep.
is just like, damn, how are you doing that? And you create these, as you call them, agents. Just if you can talk maybe your process and where you see this whole thing going, because it's definitely given freedom. I will tell you that freedom mentally,
Mm.
freedom financially, and freedom time wise. Which, by the way, he says he's on a beach, guys. This guy is creating so much right now. He's not enjoying that beach time. So we're clear. He says all the time, he's like, look, I will be replaced. I know it's coming
Yep.
because of the things I'm building, but he's not resting on his laurels. I mean, this dude is a freaking workhorse. But anyway, to the question, where do you see this thing going, man? And how are you using AI to continue to grow?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing I'll say is the rise of AI, the domination that AI is really gonna have on the market is imminent. We cannot avoid it. It's a tsunami wave that is slowly building and coming our way. And so when I realized that, I decided, okay, well, rather than looking at AI as an enemy, let's look at it as our friend. Let's figure out how to turn AI into our secret weapon. And how can we leverage AI not as something that necessarily replaces us, but amplifies who and what we already are, right? So a lot of what you see in Growth Loop, we used to have to do by hand. All of that market research, all of that deep thinking. I would work with my clients painstakingly to craft the perfect messaging, to get really clear on that market positioning. And so, what I'll say about AI is this: AI is not actually intelligent, it's almost intelligent.
Mm.
What makes AI intelligent, what makes Growth Loop system intelligent, is the human inputs that we've spent time both programming into our systems, but also the way in which we extract data and information from our clients. So the way I like to think about AI is it's almost like a mathematical algorithm. If we can actually feed this algorithm with as much granular detail, with as much human intelligence as possible, what's going to come out on the other end? Something that's like 98% pure. I don't know if you ever watched Breaking Bad, but Walt Whitman, right? Like, I can't remember what Heisenberg, that's what they called him. And the reason he became so famous was because he had the purest meth on the market. It's like 95, 98% pure. Well, how could we get that level of purity out of AI? Because a
Mm.
lot of what's coming out of AI today is garbage. You see a lot of trash on the internet, literally. You see people that are using AI without really taking the time to develop it in the proper way, and it's flooded the market with a lot of content and information that's both inaccurate and not useful. And so there are a lot of people who are turned off to AI because of that. And as a result, they don't realize that that is the new frontier. But Growth Loop, what we've pioneered is what we call human AI, where it is a full on integration between human intelligence and artificial intelligence to create something that is totally transformational in a business that leverages our expertise, that leverages our insight, and translates it into actionable strategies, tools, and weaponry in our business armory so that we can go to market and actually win the battle, win the fight. So a lot of what we do is take the time to make sure that our systems are trained properly, not only on our clients and their business, but on the best practice frameworks that actually drive results in business. So we spend a lot of time with that, making sure that our prompts are set up properly. We create custom GPTs, AI agents that can do amazing things like output whole beautiful researched articles, and really just make sure that our clients also understand the logic of what AI is, what it can do, and how it can fit into their business. And here's my prediction, and I'm not the only one saying this, but I truly believe that businesses today, if they get into AI right now, just like if you got into Bitcoin, right, when it first came to market, that's the $1 trillion opportunity today. I mean, it is going to completely revolutionize the marketplace. And if businesses continue to neglect AI and they don't figure out how to integrate it into their business to both automate rote tasks, but also accelerate and amplify their own genius, they're going to be left behind.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I will tell you, for those business owners and entrepreneurs that are listening that are like, hey, JM, I'm kind of like you. I'm not a techie. What do I do? Here's what I'll tell you. Find good people like a Christian, a Mateo that understand this, right?
Absolutely.
So what I really, and I'm going to call it prompting, right? And that may be the right terminology. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but we'll spit something into AI and it'll spit something back and you'll say, all right, cool, but, and then you'll say whatever the but is. I want it to feel a little different. I want to dumb it down. I want a fifth grader to be understanding, whatever the thing is.
Yep.
And this is the skill. It truly is a skill. This is what, and I so agree with what you said. Like, I see videos almost on a daily where I'm like, that is some bullshit AI that somebody's just, that's just lazy, man.
Yep.
Like, I could do that. I actually can spit something into ChatGPT, go to 11 Labs, like you can create this thing, but it looks like garbage. The ability, the prompts. And so my point is, if you're listening, you're like, I don't quite get it. Here's what I would tell you. This is a great time for partnership.
Absolutely.
This is a great time for collaboration. And this is where I had that conversation with you and Mateo. And I was like, look, I don't know, right, what this is going to be, but I know that we're going to work together because your skill set I don't have and I'm never going to. Some of my skills I think that I have that you may not have, and we are building stuff so quickly.
Yes.
And that's what I want people to realize is like, find somebody that understands it so that you can accelerate your growth. I don't know. Any thoughts on that? Anything that I missed?
No, I mean, I think everything you're saying is spot on. That AI, like I said before, all AI does is amplify who and what we already are. So if you're lazy, that's what you're going to get out of AI. You're going to get bullshit. If you're focused and you have the right prompt engineering, if you really understand what it is that you're trying to achieve, AI, again, it can turn into a weapon of mass transformation for your business. And so that's how we leverage it. And a big part of how Growth Loop uses AI is conversational AI. So we don't just say, hey, here's some prompts, like stick these into ChatGPT. No, we've created an entire ecosystem where you get to talk back and forth with AI, just as if you were talking to someone like me. And we're going to get an output that in the past would have taken weeks, months for us to produce. And so really what I would love for business owners to understand, for creators to understand, is that AI isn't a cheat code or a shortcut in the sense that you can just turn it on and it's going to give you results. Where it's really most useful is, I'd like to use this analogy. If you've ever ridden an Uber bike before, right, or a bicycle in general, well, when you're riding a regular bike, it requires your energy, your work right? To actually get that bicycle to mechanically move and get to your destination. But what if you had an engine on that? What if you had a booster that allowed you to move faster with less effort, but still get to the same destination?
Mm.
That's what AI is, right? It's our friend, it's our ally. But what it's not a crutch. It's not a silver bullet. And so we've got to get away from looking at AI in that way and really start to leverage it strategically so that we can make better decisions with enhanced insights and data.
Dude, I'm using that, by the way. It is literally, it's the fastest e-bike in the world.
Literally.
Literally. So you do have to pedal to start it.
Yep.
And you got to have your eyes on the road and you have to be able to hit the brakes.
Yep.
It's the fastest. I'm telling you, that analogy is going to be absolute gold. This is what happens. Christian talks, and I'm like, damn, that's good. I'm going to use that in sales. And then it works, man. It's so good. So if I'm listening, because you've kind of said what growth. I know growth enough because I get a chance to see it and talk to you and feel what it is. Who is that person? If they're listening, they're like, well, this sounds cool. Because I introduce you to a fair amount of folks, but I have a whole group of people listening now that I'm like, hey, look, you should go talk to Christian if you want to accelerate your business. Who is that ICP, if you will, for Growth Loop? Because I think it's everyone, and I might be wrong. And I just give you that opportunity to tell them, because I'm telling you guys, if you want to, 10x, 15, 50x your business, Growth Loop is that thing. It really is that dynamic.
Absolutely. That's a great question. So here's what I'll say. A lot of business owners don't tend to think of themselves this way, but 99% of them are experts. They're good at something. They figured out something that they can do that someone else can't do the same way that they do, right? That's actually what differentiates a business from any other business. What can you do that no one can do the exact same way that you do that produces results? What's your expertise? What's the transformation that you're bringing to market? So I'm always looking for individuals who really have a strong value proposition. They've got something in their hands that if they could get it in front of the right people, it'll change that customer or that client situation. I'm looking for experts. I'm looking for thought leaders. I'm looking for service providers specifically who really understand how to create results and transformation in their clients' lives. And my job is to amplify that. My job is to make sure that they're able to get in front of those very people that they're looking for. So, I love working with businesses that are trying to scale to that $1 million mark, and beyond. And then we also work with bigger companies as well, who are really trying to take their go-to-market or even their exit strategy to the next level. But if you're an expert, if you're a CEO, a founder, and you're doing something in service for other individuals that can create a transformation, you can find your customers on the internet, especially on LinkedIn. Man, we can put together a really powerful, complete revenue marketing engine for your business that produces results on autopilot while also enhancing human input to scale thought leadership and authority. So that's really who we're looking for to work with.
Yeah. So I've been burnt by the marketing firms. When Christian's saying, these stories, he heard it from me on about like 4 of them. And he looked at me and goes, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. One of those Yoda moments. I'm like, damn it, that's not what I want to hear, Christian. Like, I need you to hear all my challenges. He's like, yeah, man, this is exactly where you're supposed to be. I want to talk about something different now because you also do something at a younger age, I would say, that is quite impressive. You're single. You're hanging out in these, look, Colombia and Peru and Brazil, and there's some decent looking females that are also single out there. And yet, you have this discipline about you, man. You have this focus about you to where I'm not saying you don't enjoy life and you get a chance to experience the cultures and whatnot, whether that's dating or just the restaurant scene or whatever. But you are very clear, like, look, man, I'm going to put in the work, both
Yep.
that means for my body, my soul, my mind. Every day I'm going to take care of me, take care of the business. It You do it so different than the majority of people where I'm going to go have a great time. I'm going to spend all my discretionary income. You're like, no, man, I'm focused.
Yep.
Talk to me about that discipline and what that looks like on a daily for you.
Well, my friends say that I'm psychopathically focused, which is crazy. But, in a lot of ways, that is true. I have a big vision, and I wrote this down years and years ago that, I'm going to scale Growth Loop to $1 billion company. Like that is my objective. Whether I get there or not, that's for fate to decide. But I have a singular objective of achieving that through the vehicle of helping others grow. And that requires an immense level of sacrifice and commitment, which is something that, I did learn at an early age. But as I got older, I kind of started to lose sight of that in a lot of ways. I got out into the world, and there was a period of time where I didn't have the discipline. I struggled with a lot of different challenges. I lost myself kind of in the sea of all these things that are happening in the world as a young person. And I remember, many years ago, I was really in an environment and in a space that I shouldn't have been, that wasn't conducive to my success, that wasn't conducive to my health. And it resulted in a traumatic experience for me. It was on Father's Day several years ago, and I got into an altercation with this guy, and it turned into 10 guys, right? That now had surrounded me. They were all part of this gang, and I got into it with them. And at that time in my life, I didn't really have as much regard for my own future and my own life. I was very, very lost as a young man. And that resulted in me, being assaulted, got hit in the back of the head, with a pistol, not cold, broke my shoulder, face issues, everything was just completely messed up. A friend of mine, unfortunately also came to help me, and, they got him too. And I remember after that event, I was so depressed. I was in bed, I was bedridden. And I remember laying down, I was there, for weeks. I didn't have a job at the time. I didn't have income at the time. And I couldn't believe that this was how far I'd fallen. And, I remember looking up at the ceiling and thinking to myself, it's now or never. Either you take your life into your own hands and you turn this thing around, or your life is over. You're not going to turn this thing around. The next incident is going to result in you not being here. And something clicked in my mind that night. And it was this: the reason why you lack focus, the reason why you're so distracted, the reason why you're looking for an escape is because the ambition that you have is crushing. And it's crushing because you haven't matched it with commensurate action. You haven't matched that ambition with the right inputs. And I made a decision right then and there that I was going to turn this whole thing around and become the best version of myself. Literally, I made that promise to myself. I didn't have insurance. I rehabilitated my shoulder. I got focused into the gym. I got locked in, and I decided, you know what? I'm going to stay committed to this, and I'm going to build these micro habits day in and day out. And out of that, there's a model that I live by, a framework that I came up with that I live by. My best friend and I, we talk about this all the time. He's an amazing teacher based in DC and does amazing stuff. And it's mindset, habits, routine, and systems. First, you've got to reprogram your subconscious mind from all that negative talk about yourself and about life and opportunities. You got to reprogram that. And I realized through meditation that I had a monkey mind that was so deathly when it came to who I was as a person, that thing was automatically leading me down a path of destruction. So I had to spend a lot of time actively jailbreaking my subconscious. And literally every time I had a negative thought, I remember this time period, I would counterattack. I went on full-blown warfare with my mind to completely reformat it to produce positive thoughts. 90% of the time. So that was the first stage for me. How do I really transform that mindset? And then habits, right? So habits are really the translation of our mindset into micro actions. And so every single day, I would ask myself, okay, what habit are you engaging in? Is this the right habit? Is this habit productive? Is it leading to a result that you're actually looking for? And so I spent time eliminating the bad habits and amplifying the good ones. So gym routine, making sure that you're tight on your diet. I still struggle with this one here and there, is going to sleep, because I got so much to do. So the sleep routine, if somebody knows how to deal with that, please help me out, because I'm up every single night. But it works out. But I spent a lot of time just like really reprogramming that, and then translating those habits into routines. So making sure that, I'm not only building the right habits, but I'm stacking those habits, and I'm making sure that those habits are really scheduled and integrated into my calendar, which leads me to systems. Like really seeing yourself as a system, right? You're not just a random person that's just out here. No, you can literally build a system around yourself, become that system, and then plug into other people's lives and other people's endeavors, and be a vehicle for transformation. So for me, one thing that I live by my to-do list. I live by my calendar. I live by all the systems that I've developed in my business, so that, I can help 30 plus clients at a time. I can deal with back-to-back meetings from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Not necessarily because I have to, but because I'm doing something that's different, right? I want to really be in the weeds at this point of my business. And it requires a significant amount of not only discipline, but capacity and consistency. So, I mean, everything you've seen, I've been doing this, for years, day in and day out, working with dozens of companies at once, and really developing the capacity to be able to do that, because it's difficult. It's difficult, to get to that point. But, just like we're going to the gym, you push heavy weight, what happens? You build the muscle, right? You build the endurance and the stamina. And I think that, as a result of my approach, I've been able to create a life for myself where I do have a significant amount of capacity and stamina, probably more than the average person.
Well, it's called The Compound Effect, and
Ooh.
actually, it's a great book by Darren Hardy. If you guys haven't read it, it's literally, it's not sexy, right? Getting up and doing that stuff every single day, it's not sexy, and yet it is so efficient. I love that you started with mindset, because 100% that it starts there. I don't care how much you change your habits, unless you create this first and you are your best cheerleader. Yeah, man, it's going to be a struggle. And then you and I have not talked about this. Go read the book, Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker,
Right.
because he's going to convince you. I was a 3 to 4 hour sleep guy. I was like, I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Right.
That is bullshit,
It is.
terrible. Literally, you're losing years on your life. So Dr. Matthew Walker and sleep meditation. So, but I don't want to take that time that's another show. What didn't I know enough to ask you, man? Like I said, I'm a big fan of Christian. I'm so grateful to have you in my life. What's on your heart and mind that I didn't know enough to ask you, that you kind of want to leave the audience with as we start to wrap up?
Man, that is a really great question. I mean, I'd love to explore what just the power of relationships and friendships in business. I think even when it comes to our connection, I'm sure you've seen this from my approach. I see this in your approach. I see this in all the people that, we're starting to cultivate, just the power of that. Like, I'll speak on this real quick, and then I'll let you ask the question. But, one of my favorite video games growing up, I was a big gamer as a kid. I don't have any time for that. I don't even watch TV anymore. But I was a big gamer as a kid. And my favorite video game of all time is Final Fantasy VII. And it's this massive role-playing game that is in this post-apocalyptic universe, and so many different things are going on. But, I remember getting this game at 7 years old, and I got introduced to this concept of party members. right? So as the main character in this story, you're going through the plot, you're going through these obstacles and trials and tribulations, and along the way, you find other like-minded people to join the party. And as they join the party, what happens? You get stronger. You develop more capabilities. The plot lines begin to thicken and things begin to evolve in these amazing ways. And so, the way I like to see my life and my journey, it's like a massive video game. And I get to explore and connect with other people and create a party, right? Not a party where we're partying, but really a group of people who are singularly focused and committed to achieving specific objectives. And it's through those relationships where I've been able to find deeper wisdom, deeper insights, where I've been able to unlock new opportunities, not only for myself, but for other people. So that's something that's really, really important to me. And something that honestly I would say is probably the most important thing to me is relationships.
Yeah, I love that. And my answer is alignment and an open mind. Here's the example. You're 30, early 30s, right? We have
32.
different backgrounds. You're 32. I'm 46. And yet the ability to just say, you know what, this person, I'm very attracted to that person. I'm not afraid to say it, and not in a sexual way,
Absolutely.
like, man, there is something here.
Yes.
And to be vulnerable enough to say, hey, I want you in my life.
Yeah.
And then to be able to put the ego to the side, because here's the deal, guys. I guarantee you, the two people I've mentioned twice or three times on the show, Christian and Mateo, they are wildly more intelligent than I am in so many regards. And I'm comfortable with that, and so are they. And the point is to put the egos aside and say, how can we lift one another up? When we do that, again, I'm not a gamer at all, but when you do that and you're focused on the objective, and my favorite quote is right here. It's amazing what can be accomplished if no one cares who gets the credit. When you can think about that, whenever you're in a company or a team, it's amazing what can be accomplished if no one cares who gets the credit.
It's a bar.
Man, we can do some cool shit. Brother, I appreciate you. We're going to dive deeper on that subject. We're going to get you sleeping longer because I need you around for a long, long time. If people want to connect with you, which they trust me, please do. Where's the best place to find you online and really connect?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, Christian Smutherman. Look me up. You can check me out on my website, growthloop.io. We've got some really amazing content and a breakdown of our model down there. And if you want to shoot me an email, christian@growthloop.io. I'm always responsive. I'm always on there, and I'd love to have a conversation if you're looking for a partner to help you take things to the next level.
He just literally gave you gold, so please take advantage of it. Brother, you make me happy. You make me smile. I appreciate you, and my life is better because you're in it. So thank you, man. I just appreciate it.
Thank you so much, brother. I can say the same.
You guys, I'm telling you right now, I don't refer everybody under the sun. I refer the people that are amazing, and this is one of them. Here's what I would tell you. Go check them out. Put in Let's Go Win podcast. I heard just let him know, and he absolutely will take your business to the next level. I'm telling you, this guy's wicked smart, but even cooler dude. So please share this with someone that needs this, because trust me, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars and lots of time. There's my woe is me story. And then I find this cool dude, and life seems so much easier in my business because of it. I'm so grateful for you guys, for him. Have an amazing, amazing rest of your week. And until next time, remember, your mindset matters. I appreciate y'all.